Hey there, Jake here from CVP. This is Canon's latest hybrid mirrorless camera, the R6 Mark III. I know we're a little bit late to the party with this one, but this is a full production camera so we can go in depth on how it performs. This camera shares a bunch with the C50, so in this video I want to compare it to that camera and also explore it from the perspective of a more video focused creator. On paper it's very impressive, but is it worth considering for your next camera? Let's get into it. Late last year, Canon lent us this camera and the RF 45mm f1.2 STM lens for a few days to test, and we managed to get them out on location for some real world shooting and test them in our studio. When we tested the R6 Mark II back in 2022 when it was released, I loved using it. It was one of my favourite photo first hybrids I've ever used, and it's still a fantastic camera that we've used in our studio a lot for a while now. The R6 Mark III takes what made that camera so great and develops on it even further. It's definitely an improved photography camera, but its main upgrades are in the video department. Across the board, it can deliver great looking images and it is fantastic to use. It really does have an excellent blend of features and performance for people who need a camera that is slightly more weighted towards photo use, but without compromising too much on the video features. I'm sure we will be swapping out our R6 Mark IIs to these when we can to accompany the rest of our Canon kit we use for our content production. The R6 Mark III shares the same full-frame 32.5 megapixel 7K sensor Canon is also using in the C50. It has an effective resolution of 6960 by 4640 and a size when recording of 35.9 by 23.9mm. Giving it a pixel pitch of 5.16 microns. However, the R6 Mark III is paired with the Digic X processor instead of the older DV7 in the C50. This may translate into faster performance in some areas of the camera, which we'll look at in a bit. Like the C50, it is rated to capture roughly 15 plus stops of dynamic range, which is good for a camera like this. Canon has said there is a slight difference in image processing between the two, and I do think the C50 image is a touch less sharper, which makes it look less digital, but this is very minor. The R6 Mark III doesn't have a rated dual native ISO number, but we did manage to run through the different ISOs in both RAW C-Log2 and then in 4K XFAVC in Canon 709. In RAW and C-Log2, the camera's base ISO is 800. Looking at the rushes in Resolve, we can see that there is a significant step in noise reduction at 6400 ISO. 6400 is a good second base to have, and performance here is good. When shooting RAW video, depending on how you expose, you may still need to do some noise reduction, but Canon always does a good job of balancing detail and colour more than aggressive noise reduction, and then you can dial in how much noise reduction you want in post. In the 709 profiles, these steps halve to ISO 400 and 3200. In lower light scenes, the camera performs well in both photo and video mode. If you want to keep up with the latest and greatest kit, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to buy anything you see in this video, or want to get your hands on the R6 Mark III or any other kit for that matter, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. For our Latitude test, we shot a comparison against the R5 II as we compared the C50 to a good few more in our review of that camera. So if you want to see a rough comparison, check that video out. Here's a breakdown of our methodology for these tests and the different formats we shot across the two cameras. Anyway, let's take a look at the results. Starting with our overexposure testing, we can see all the way up to 4 stops over the image looks really good. At 4 stops we can see the large white chip on our chart clipping. At 4 1/3 we can see Sam's forehead starting to clip. From here we see more clipping up to 6 stops over. Comparing it to the R5 II, performance looks to be pretty much exactly the same. We see the same steps at 4 and 4 1/3 stops over. Colour is also very comparable as well, which is good to see. Looking at underexposure, we shot the R6 Mark III at both its base ISO of 800 and at 6400 ISO. Starting at ISO 800 at -2 it looks good, though we can start to see some noise here. At -3 we see noise much easier. We can also see the image shift more purple and Sam's skin tone has lost saturation. However, it still is very detailed because we've shot them in RAW, and clearly the camera isn't applying too much noise reduction to smear the detail out. From here it gets much noisier as we head towards the deeper stops. Compared to the 6400 ISO clips, we can see the high ISO clips do look a little bit noisier. However, if we look at these two clips, which are the same amount of light hitting the sensor, but one at ISO 800 and one at ISO 6400, which are then normalized to match each other in post, we can see how much cleaner the ISO 6400 clip is when boosting the ISO to this in camera. Comparing it to the R5 II, we can see that the R5 II does look a bit cleaner than the R6 III at the same stops. Overall though, performance is good, but the R5 II unsurprisingly edges it out ever so slightly. The R6 Mark III features physical sensor stabilisation that is rated up to 8.5 stops with the compatible lens. This was one thing that for some is missing from the C50. Of course, there are reasons why you want a lockdown sensor like in the C50, but I think for cameras this small being used for video handheld, a solid internal stabilisation system is important. So let's take a look at how this camera performs. For these tests we shot with a 14 to 35mm f4, which has optical stabilisation at 20mm. We shot with stabilisation fully off, sensor stabilisation and lens stabilisation combined, and then both still on again, but with the addition of digital stabilisation as well. Comparing no stabilisation to the camera and lens combo, we can see how much is taken out by this system. Even when walking, it looks so much better, though there are some wobbles towards the corners. Enabling digital IS crops in on the image, but does help smooth out the walking shots a little bit. Though one thing worth noting is that you cannot use this when shooting RAW. I also wanted to compare it quickly to the C50, which we did with the R6 Mark III's IBIS on and off. We did a mix of walking, running, and some more subtle movement shots as well. Looking at the footage, we can see a clear difference between the two. You can see much more shake on the C50 image compared to the R6 Mark III. Adding weight to the C50 will help smooth out the regular shots, but the sensor IBIS on the R6 Mark III does help smooth movement out while using it stripped back. I think for most, the regular combination of lens and sensor stabilisation will be a great thing to have when shooting handheld. It really does a good job of removing the micro jitters the C50 can have when using it in a really lightweight stripped back configuration. Luckily, Canon offer a good range of lenses with optical stabilisation, which I think is really good that they do, though I would love to see more primes from them with stabilisation as well, especially considering their Cinema EOS cameras don't have any sensor stabilisation. The R6 Mark III features Canon's dual-pixel CMOS AF2 focusing system with a range of updated tracking subjects and modes. This includes people, animals, and vehicle tracking, and excellent performance overall. Out on location using the camera creatively, it works really well in both stills and video. When taking photos, focus is snappy and good at knowing where you want to focus. In the video looking at our focus testing, we can see that it tracks Sam well here, only losing him very slightly at points. It also has the new registered person priority mode, which allows you to input a face from an image, and when the camera recognizes this person in your scene, it will prioritize focusing on that subject. This could be very good for sports, weddings, and documentaries where you know you need to focus on a few subjects really reliably. We also quickly compared it to the C50 side by side. This was using the Canon RF 50mm f1.2 with the cameras fully maxed out in regard to focus speed, and with locked on subject detection. Looking at the results, they both look really good, but the C50 actually looks a touch better, which I was quite surprised by, though this could be a small discrepancy in the test. Like I said though, they are both excellent now, and when out on location using the R6 Mark III in both photo and video mode, the performance really is fantastic. Even in low light, it performs really well. The R6 Mark III's video colour profiles are actually quite similar to the C50's. You have the ability to capture C-Log2, C-Log3, and a range of 709 profiles across the different recording options. A lot of the example video we've shot are captured in RAW and then processed through Resolve, and the colours look as you would expect from a Canon camera. They are nicely saturated and overall very pleasing and natural, and nice to work with in both Lightroom for photos and Resolve for video. One massive improvement on the R6 Mark III is how you white balance in video. Unlike previous Canon cameras where you have to cumbersomely load in a picture over grey card to white balance, you can now simply tap on your white balance and then use this small square in the centre of the frame to white balance your image. There is also a new white balance lock function where when shooting in auto you can assign a button to lock your white balance, and then when you want to go back to auto, hit the button again, which could be helpful for some. Up next, let's check out how this camera handles infrared light pollution. For these tests we grabbed a range of different black fabrics as different types will behave differently to each other, and then blasted an Ari blonde at them. We then went through the range of our Polar Pro variable ND, adjusting aperture on our lens to keep exposure consistent. This is an unnamed camera with its ORPF removed as an extreme example of what IR pollution does to your image. Starting off looking at the camera with no ND, we can see that as we go through the different stops there is only a very minor colour shift, with it looking a bit warmer towards the deeper stops, but not by much. It handles it well, and when shooting outside with an ND as well, we didn't run into any issues. Let's take a look at the camera's sensor readout speed. For these controlled tests, we are using our own in-house measuring tool and software, so we can give you some numbers and compare them to other cameras we've measured before. In the camera's full frame 3x2 mode, we get a readout time of roughly 18 milliseconds. If you shoot in one of the 16 or 17x9 modes, this drops down to just above 14 milliseconds, which is plenty fast enough for most people. It's not really quick like some of the lower resolution mirrorless cameras on the market now, but I think for a high resolution mirrorless camera, it's plenty fast enough, and you won't see any artifacts unless you use the camera in really extreme ways. Considering the R6 Mark III is a stills camera first, the video spec of the camera is actually pretty excellent. You can record in a mix of different formats and codecs depending on what you need. This includes a mix of RAW, XF-HEVCS, and XF-AVCS in both 16 and 17x9 options. Compared to the C50, the RAW format on the R6 Mark III is a little bit different. It's not denoted the same across both cameras. The C50 uses Canon's Cinema RAW Lite format in a range of different compression amounts, noted as LT, ST, and HQ, whereas the R6 Mark III is just a RAW video format available in standard and light versions, which offer you two different levels of compression and data rates. When you hit post, these formats work well, though in Premiere you do have quite limited RAW controls compared to something like NRAW and R3D, but it's more than enough to get the job done. The C50 does have some recording modes that the R6 Mark III doesn't though, which isn't too surprising given it's a video-focused camera versus a traditional stills camera. You can also record proxies on the R6 Mark III, which is helpful as well. Like the C50, the R6 Mark III also has the ability to record in full-frame 3x2 open gate. It's great to see more cameras get this now, as ultimately it's aimed at giving end users more flexibility. In my mind, it's great for two things, for delivering both 16x9 and 9x16 formats and 1.5 times anamorphic lenses, which will give you a roughly 2.25 to 1 de-squeezed image. They have also added the ability to overlay two aspect ratio markers simultaneously, which will make framing for two different delivery formats much nicer. Is open gate recording important to you? Let us know in the comments below. You also have the option to choose between line skipped and oversampled 4K, with the latter being labelled as fine in the menu. This will provide you with a much nicer compressed 4K image, but it does limit frame rate and recording time, which we'll talk about more in a bit. Looking at our resolution chart, we can see a clear difference in resolving power between the different modes, with the RAW definitely being the best. Though we can see some slight moire and aliasing, though these charts really are a stress test for cameras. It's not surprising seeing some aliasing because this is a stills camera first, and if a stills camera has an OLPF, it's going to be much weaker than one you'd find in a more video or cinema focused camera. When it comes to high frame rate options, the camera offers a good amount. In standard or light RAW, you can record 7K 3x2 open gate up to 30 frames per second. To go above 30 frames in RAW, you need to choose the regular full frame sensor mode and RAW Lite, which can be recorded up to 60 frames per second. In the compressed formats, you can go up to 120 frames per second in XF HEVC 10-bit, and then up to 180 in 2K or Full HD with no crop. In the camera's slow and fast mode, you can also go down to 1 frame per second as well. When it comes to photography speed, you can capture up to 12 frames per second with the mechanical shutter, and then up to 40 when using the electronic shutter. This is rapid, and thanks to the decent readout speed of the sensor, rolling shutter isn't too much of an issue when using this electronic shutter, though with fast-moving subjects you may still experience some artifacts. It also has the pre-capture feature from their flagship camera, the R1, which will be great for wildlife and sports photographers. One of the biggest questions surrounding the R6 Mark III has to be its cooling solution and recording times. Gerald Undone has done some great testing on the exact times you can expect from this camera, so check out his updated video about this if you want to learn more about the specifics. The R6 Mark III doesn't have a robust cooling system compared to the C50, so it does have shorter runtimes compared to that camera. So if you need a constant stream of video and don't want to worry about running into any issues, grabbing the C50 may be a better option. The R6 Mark III has a higher temperature threshold mode, which I suggest enabling if you do shoot video a lot with this camera. We had this on during all of our testing, and during our shooting days we didn't run into any issues. The R6 Mark III is a lovely hybrid camera to use for both photo and video shooting. It feels very solid in the hand, and the modern tools and features Canon have crammed into this camera are excellent. If you've used a Canon camera before, you will feel right at home with this one. It does use the same EVF and screen used on the R6 Mark II, and while they are both nice enough, I do think an improvement to them both would have been good to see. It has a dual card slot, one CF Express Type B and one SD UHS 2, and if you're wanting to shoot raw video in this, you'll need to grab some nice CF Express Type B cards, as recording to SD in this mode isn't possible. It's also pretty robustly dust and water resistant, which is good for this type of camera. Like loads of Canon's previous cameras, it uses their LP6 style battery, though it does require an LP6P to give you the full feature set of the camera. We recommend grabbing first-party batteries for the most reassuring performance, but there are loads of third-party LP6P options now as well. When it comes to battery life, the camera lasts a good while shooting just stills, but it will get through batteries quite quickly if you're shooting video all day. It also has a couple of new video tools which are really helpful. This includes false color, a view assist when shooting in log, the ability to import LUTs, and, as we mentioned earlier, the ability to use multiple aspect ratio overlays at the same time. The R6 Mark III is unsurprisingly a truly excellent stills camera. The R6 Mark II was already an absolute workhorse, and again, the R6 Mark III builds on that. The extra 9 megapixels would of course give you larger, more detailed images, but will come at the cost of larger file sizes, which may be a big deal for some shooters. The R6 Mark III is missing some of the more video-focused features of the C50, like the new dual recording format mode, shutter angle, and a plethora of more granular options in the Cinema EOS menu system. However, the R6 III shares a lot with the C50. We covered the C50 in depth in a previous video, so if you want to learn more about that camera, please check that video out. The easy way to think about these cameras is that the R6 Mark III is a photo-first camera, but is still very capable at shooting video. The C50 is a video-first camera, but still very capable of shooting photos. The R6 Mark III is designed as you would expect from a Canon mirrorless camera. It has great ergonomics, a nice viewfinder, and a familiar layout, making it lovely to use and control when taking stills, and decent when shooting video. It also has built-in sensor stabilisation, whereas the C50 only has digital IS available. This sensor stabilisation and the viewfinder could be massive deal breakers for some people. It also has a mechanical shutter, whereas the C50 doesn't, and it is compatible with on-camera flash. But it does have a good few things missing that the C50 has, and that's because the C50 has clearly been designed for video-focused shooters. The physical layout of the C50 is very different. It has a zoom lever on the shutter button here, holes across the body for mounting accessories, a front record button, and timecode and anamorphic support. Both cameras can switch between photo and video modes, but the R6 Mark III is the same operating system between them, which makes it pretty much an instant switch. With the C50, when you switch between the photo and video menu systems, you're going between the Canon stills menu, like the one in the R6 Mark III, and the Cinema EOS system that you will find on their other Cinema EOS cameras. This means you have much more video-focused tools and features. It also comes with the excellent XLR top handle, which is such a great addition to this camera. The C50 also has a more robust cooling system that we've mentioned already, which results in it having much more reliable long recording times compared to the passively cooled R6 Mark III. The C50 is roughly £500 more than the R6 Mark III, which, given its more video-focused features and ergonomics, I think for a lot of video shooters it will be the better choice. For more photography-focused creators though, the R6 Mark III is a seriously impressive blend of photo and video features. Looking outside of Canon, there are loads of excellent hybrid mirrorless cameras around the £3,000 price tag now. It's actually pretty insane how good these cameras have gotten over the past few years. And honestly, I think usability, features, and lens choice are the three key things to consider now when investing into a new camera system. But the R6 Mark III does have an incredible set of features and impressive image quality overall. This camera is going to be popular for photographers wanting an excellent blend of price, resolution, speed, and fantastic autofocus performance. For hybrid shooters, it offers such a good blend of features and performance as well. It really is crazy how good these cameras have gotten now. For dedicated video shooters and even hybrid shooters, I think the choice between this and the C50 depends on what priorities you have. Do you want the C50's more video and cine style features, a slightly tweaked image for video, and excellent XLR top handle, or the sensor stabilization and fantastic viewfinder on the R6 Mark III? There are so many excellent cameras on offer now, all with different pros and cons. Honestly, it can be a bit confusing. We have both the R6 Mark III and the C50 available to check out for yourself in our UK or European showrooms, so if you want to get your hands on one or get some advice on what camera might be best for you, don't hesitate to get in contact with us via demo@cvp.com. The R6 Mark III is one of the most balanced hybrid mirrorless cameras available. I love the R5C, and this and the C50 are both clearly aimed at those users, as well as primary photography shooters. I do miss some of the Cinema EOS features and tools when shooting video, but the Canon Stills menu has plenty and is certainly very usable. I do wish it had shutter angle, as it is genuinely useful when shooting video, but Canon have got a lot right with this camera. The R6 Mark III is available to order now for £2,799, or roughly €3,253 body only, and I've put links to buy it from us in the description below. Anyway, if you have any more questions or thoughts about the Canon R6 Mark III, please let us know in the comments. And if you like the video, please give it a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.